So, I'm in some random Starbucks in the middle of downtown Las Vegas typing this out for reasons that are beyond me. I guess that if I die, I want to at least have someone know what had happened to me. You're probably getting the impression that I am scared for my life, but you would be completely wrong. In fact, I'm having the most fun I've ever had. This is by far the best game I've ever played. Now enough of my babbling. Let me indulge you on why I hired a hitman on myself. So, it all started about 4 weeks ago. I was sitting in my office, bored as hell, staring blankly into my computer, counting each individual white pixel on that goddamn screen. As I'm staring off into space, enjoying the peace and quiet of my own little world, I start thinking to myself, how did I end up this way? My life has boiled down to me sitting in a fucking cubicle for 8 hours a day, eating and sleeping. I sure as hell didn't grow up thinking, boy, I'd sure love to spend the rest of my life filing acquaintances for some soul-draining corporation. I mean, I made good money, sure, but I don't even feel human anymore. It's like I'm just going through the motions. I have no kids, no girlfriend, no family that actually want to do anything to do with me. I'm completely alone. I need some adventure in my life again, some excitement. Fuck, anything is better than what I'm doing right now. I was snapped out of thinking how pathetic my life was by my annoying ass boss asking me if I had finished with this week's paperwork. I hadn't yet, but I lied to him and told him I did. He told me in his "I'm superior to you" tone to have it on his desk tomorrow morning. Yeah, I'll get right on that, you self-centered prick. I finished up with the form I had been working on and turned off my computer. It was 5 p.m., signaling the end of the day and the end of another meaningless day, just to come back tomorrow morning and do the same shit all over again. I got home and started thinking about what I could do to make my life a bit more fun. I went through the usual ideas of a vacation, moving to a new city, maybe even a new car. Yet they all fell short. I needed something really fucking crazy to go down. I wanted to drop a bomb on my former life and really get shit together. I started fucking around on the deep web, looking at all the illegal shit that they had to offer. Then I saw an ad that said, "Have a problem in your life? Hire one of our cleaners to take care of it." Now, my interest was piqued. I checked out their website, and it was a site to hire a hitman. And a thought popped in my head. What if I hired a hitman on myself? It would be like a game of cat and mouse, and the punishment of getting caught would be, of course, death. I was curious to see what their guidelines were, and to see how far they would actually go to eliminate a target, so I emailed them saying I had a problem and I wanted to get rid of it. Within 3 hours, I got a response back, informing me of all the details of the business and the range of prices it would cost me. I didn't respond right away, allowing myself to think carefully of what I was getting myself into. The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. This was the ultimate adventure game, like a real-life video game. I would have someone that would spend night and day hunting me down, and I would have to spend all my time hunting them down. The first person to find the other wins, and the loser dies. It was perfect. So I went to work the next day, knowing that would be my last day there. I did what every cubicle monkey dreams of doing. I told my boss that he could go fuck himself. Told the smoking hot receptionist that I wanted to bend her over the desk and fuck her brains out. And destroy every last form and file I had in that shithole prison just to make things harder for all the douchebags I worked with. Then I got to work on setting everything up. I went out and bought myself some new toys at the local gun store. Bought myself a new 9mm Glock, a PS-90 assault rifle, and my crown jewel, a Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle. I also stopped by this nifty little spy store in my city and picked up a few things. A few objects with discrete cameras in them that allowed me to watch them through my phone, bug detectors, and a voice changer. I then took $30,000 from my savings account and converted it into bitcoins. After all that was completed, I contacted the man who had first emailed me and gave him all my info. And I told him that this man would be very hard to catch as he travels a lot. Now he may be armed. I told him that I didn't want just one of their regular cleaners on this job. I wanted the best they had to offer. Shortly after sending the email, I received a message back informing me that they would send one of the best, but it would cost a bit more. He also said that as soon as I sent the payment, they would get started. The last line of the email he sent me made me realize shit was going to get serious very quickly. Just a quick warning for you. Once the payment is set and confirmed, there's no going back. The job will be taken care of and there's nothing that can stop it from being done. Perfect. I sent the payment immediately and got a confirmation email back and that it was received and that someone would be sent out the next day to my location. Now the real fun began. So there's the start to the huge shit show I created for myself. And like I said, it's been loads of fun. I've been in the Starbucks for about 2 hours now and I need to get going as I can't stay in one location for too long. I'll update tomorrow with the rest of my story. So far, if people are interested, wish me luck. How's it going, guys? If you missed the first part of my story, here it is. Still alive and whatnot. I need to clear some stuff up with you guys before I get into my story. First off, a lot of you guys have been doubting the fact that I got a 50 cal Barrett sniper rifle without a waiting period. The reason I was able to obtain it so easily was because the state I bought the gun in is a very lenient state as far as gun policies. And on top of that, the owner of the store was my neighbor, and he knew that I had wanted one for the longest time as I have an interest in long-range shooting. So, all I had to do was get a simple background check and fill out a good amount of paperwork and it was mine. Secondly, a few of you are saying stuff like, you're not gonna last a week. If you had even read the first 2 paragraphs of my first entry, you would know that this has been going on for 4 weeks now. I've had a few encounters with a man and I'm hoping to finish this up in the next few days. Anyway, let's continue. So I had just gotten confirmation that my payment was received and someone would be sent out the next day. I started packing all my belongings in my apartment that I would need as I wouldn't be able to return until after all this was completed. I packed about a month's worth of clothes, all my electronics that I needed, all my guns and spy gear that I had bought myself, and a few other mysterious little items like a toothbrush and shampoo. Once everything was packed, I went over to a friend's house that had an older car for sale that was registered to his name. I asked him if I could trade him cars for reasons I couldn't get into. I gave him $2,000 to just keep my car in the back and look after it. I figured if this hitman agency was any good, they would look up my DMV records and what kind of car I was driving and my license plate, which would make me a lot easier to find. He agreed and told me to look after myself and be careful. So I set out back to my old apartment that night to pull all of the things I had packed up into the trunk and back seat. I also set out a little note on my coffee table in the living room that said, "Tag, you're it," just to fuck with the guy and give him a little heads up on that this wasn't gonna be an easy and average hit. What fun would it be if he didn't know that this was a fun little game? I now had everything I needed to go back on the hunt, and a car that couldn't be traced back to me. Before the day ended, I went to Walmart and picked myself up a prepaid smartphone and then dismantled my old phone so I couldn't be tracked via GPS. Before it got too late, I also stopped by the little spy shop again and picked up a magnet GPS locator. You know, the kind that Walt and Hank from Breaking Bad put under Gus Figure's car to follow him. After that, I was fully ready to do this. No turning back now. I went back to the area around my apartment around 11 p.m. and parked about 3/4 mile away to wait. No way I could stay the night there and allow the guy to get a drop on me while I was sleeping. I sat on the passenger side of the car to make it look like I was waiting for a friend to come back to the car and not to freak out people who lived in the apartments I was in front of. They said they'd be sending him out the next day, so I had to sleep in the car and wait for him to arrive. I went to sleep around midnight and woke up around 7 a.m. I took out my nice deer hunting binoculars and waited, and waited, and waited. I finally got hungry enough to convince myself I needed to eat, so I went to a little fast food joint and picked up a few burgers. I went back and parked in the same spot I was before. It was around 5 p.m. at this time, and I figured the guy wasn't going to come during the day, so I fucked around on Reddit for a few hours until it got dark. I finally got bored of Reddit, so I went back to watching my apartment. At around 10 p.m., I watched an all-black car with dark tinted windows. I think it was a Chrysler 300. Pulled up a few hundred feet from my apartment on the other side of the street. It looked a bit fishy on account of that it had out the state plates and I'd never seen it in my neighborhood before, so I started to watch it. It just sat there for about 10 minutes, presumably checking out my house. Then it drove away. Huh. Well, that was weird, I thought to myself, as I had the biggest grin on my face. I knew that was my guy. I tried to sleep that night and maybe got a few hours around 1 o'clock, but I was so excited with anticipation that I couldn't get a full night's rest. I woke up around 3:30 a.m. to check everything out, so I started fucking around on Reddit again to pass the time. Around 4 a.m. the same black car pulled up in the same spot it was before. About 2 or 3 minutes of waiting there, the lights shut off and the man got out. He was a bigger guy around my height, 6 foot, but way bigger muscle-wise. Dude could definitely beat the shit out of me if in close quarters combat, so I knew I couldn't let that happen. The guy was also dressed in a really nice suit. What a fucking stereotypical hitman, I thought to myself. I noticed I had the biggest grin on my face again. I felt so alive. The man walked across the street and sure enough went to my apartment. He took keys out of his pocket, put it in the lock, and slammed on it with this little metal brick thing. I knew it was a bump key. He then entered my apartment and shut the door behind him. About 30 seconds after he did that, I used the binoculars to focus on his license plates and wrote down the number. After about 5 minutes, he came out and put something in his pocket. Pretty sure it was either his gun or the note. He also had something else crumpled up in his hand. He threw it in the gutter, got back in his car, and drove off. I waited for about an hour and went to go see what he threw out. Sure enough, it was the tag-your-it note I left him. I started laughing hysterically and knew this was going to be a lot more fun than I could ever hope for. I went back to my car, tried to catch a few more hours of sleep. When I woke up, the sun was already up. It was around 8 a.m. I drove off to another one of my buddy's house who worked for DMV to get some more info from him. He wasn't there, so I went to his work to find him. After about 15 minutes, when he was in between helping people, and I walked up to the counter, he was surprised to see me and greeted me with a, "Hey, what's up, man?" I sat down without saying anything to him, just slipped him the piece of paper with the license plate number on it. "What's this?" he asked. I just looked at him and said, "Don't ask questions. I need the info of the person who these plates belong to." "Dude, I can't just give you information, you know that. I could get in trouble." I pulled out about $200 from my wallet and slipped it to him and said, "Please, man, this is really important. This guy wants to kill me and I need this information. My life depends on it. Here's $200. I know you and your wife have been hurting for money." He looked at me with a really serious look and muttered under his breath, "Fuck, man." He took the money and put it into his pocket and started typing on his computer. He then got up from his chair and told me he'd be right back. About a minute later, he came back with a few sheets of paper. "This is everything I could get on your guy." I looked at him again with a really serious face and said, "Don't mention this to anyone, even your wife. This guy is really dangerous and I don't need you getting involved. Make sure no one can trace this back." He looked back at me and said, "Okay." As I was getting up to leave, he just said, "Take care of yourself, man, and be careful." I told him that I would, and that I couldn't thank him enough. I walked back to my car and started studying the piece of paper. Once again, had a huge grin on my face. I now had a bunch of this guy's info in my hands. I knew who I was dealing with. I'm not disclosing the man's name due to concerns for myself and his family, so we'll just refer him to Mike. Mike was 35 years old and was registered to an address in Arizona. Like I thought it was a black Chrysler 300. Now that I had the info I needed, it was time to stake out my house a bit more. When I got back, it was around 1 p.m. and I parked in a bit further away this time. I sat in my car for about another hour, and when 2 p.m. rolled around, I saw the same black 300 roll up and about 2 blocks away from my place again. Further than last time, but close enough to watch the place thoroughly. I was about a mile away from him and he didn't even know. So, the Burger King I'm in is pretty much dead by now, and I've been here for quite a while. I'm needing to get back to my hotel and start planning some stuff. I'll try to post tomorrow when I get a bit of free time around 5 or 6 p.m. Until next time. How's it going, everybody? So, first off, sorry yesterday's part wasn't too exciting, as I had to get through the boring parts to get to the kick-ass Michael Bay explosions part. Here's part 1 and part 2 if you missed it. Oh, and not sure if I'll be able to update tomorrow, and if I do, it'll be later at night. Why, you might ask? It's Mike's last day on Earth. The day he gets a bullet in between his eyes or through his chest. Always enough of the cinematics. Let's get started. I had just gotten back around the area in my apartment and had seen Mike parked down the street from my apartment. At this point, I was done just watching him trying to watch me all day. So I decided I needed to test his abilities out. I went a few miles away to an old Motel 6. I walked in and a nice older man was running the front desk. I walked up to him and asked if I could book a room. He said yes. That would be fine, so I paid with my debit card. I also handed him an envelope and told him if he saw a man wearing a suit about my height asking for anybody, to hand this envelope to him. He stuttered a bit, trying to get out that he doesn't want to do that type of thing, but his attitude changed real quick when I pulled out $100 from my pocket and handed it to him. Oh, of course, sir. If he comes in, I'll give it to him. I then went about another 5 miles to another Motel 6 and paid for a room with my debit card again. I handed this lady another envelope and pulled out $100, described Mike to her. If he comes in here, just hand this envelope to him and he'll leave. She handed me my room keys and I left. I then went across the street to a bit nicer motel and booked a room with cash. The room was on the second story and had a clear view of the Motel 6 across the street. You might be wondering what was in the envelopes and why I booked 3 rooms. Well, first off, I need to see if they were monitoring my bank accounts. And secondly, I wanted to see what his reaction would be when he realized that I led him to 2 dead ends. The envelopes were just 2 pieces of paper. The first one said, "Try again." And the second one said, "So close yet so far. Now to just wait." I got up to my room and took a shower because I desperately needed it. I then set up one of the hidden cameras that I had bought from the spy shop outside of my room, facing the entrance to the front desk of the motel across the street. I went back inside and waited. About 2 hours later, wouldn't you know it, the black car pulled up into the parking lot. As it sat there, I looked at the GPS tracker I had bought a few days prior and knew I had an opportunity to put it on his car so I could track him. The only problem was, if I even attempted to get close to his car, he'd know I was there and might even start shooting at me. I pushed the curtain of the window to the side and looked around. I saw a couple of teenagers on bikes fucking around in the parking lot of the motel I was in. I put on a baseball cap and went downstairs trying to face away from Mike's car the whole time. I walked up to the soda machine that was downstairs and yelled to the kids to come over to where I was. I was waving a $100 bill in the air. After all, I'm sure those kids would love some cash to fuck around with and buy some pot. After looking at each other, they came over to me and asked what I wanted. I pulled out the GPS locator out of my pocket and told them if they wanted to make a quick buck, all they had to do was wait for the man in the black car across the street to get out and walk into the lobby of the motel and hide it underneath the bumper somewhere where he would have a hard time finding it. "How are we supposed to do it without him figuring out what we're doing?" one of them asked. I thought it was really quick and said, "Just ride your backs behind the car. One of you pretend to fall, then when you're on the ground, stick it underneath." All of them looked at each other and snickered and agreed. I turned it on and handed it to one of them. I then handed the $100 bill to another one, and as he grabbed it, I held on to it, and he looked at me with a questioning face as to why I wasn't let go. They all looked back at me, and I looked them dead in the eyes and said, If you kids run off with this GPS locator and my $100, I will find each one of you and kill you and your families. I'm not the type of guy you want to fuck around with. Got it?" Their smiles quickly faded and they all nodded. I'll be watching from somewhere to make sure the job is done. You boys have a nice day. They slowly turned back around and rode off across the street, not knowing what I had just said was just a bluff. I took the back stairwell back into my room. As I got in and checked the camera I had planted, Mike had just gotten out of the car and was walking across the parking lot. Just as he entered the check-in building of the motel, the kids entered the camera's frame. Just as they got near the back of the car, one of the kids fell, and I saw him reach underneath the car. He then got up and they rode off. About a minute later, I saw Mike leaving the motel lobby. He opened the envelope, read the paper, and then crumbled it up and threw it on the ground. He got out his phone, called someone while walking to his car. He got in and left after putting the phone back into his pocket. I had another huge grin on my face, knowing I was slowly winning this game. I got out my laptop and watched the little red dot slowly get further and further away. About an hour later, I decided to go check on what Mike was up to, hoping to find the location of where he was staying. I drove to the area where the GPS locator was at. I parked about half a mile and started walking to his location. It was a little parking lot for a Mexican food restaurant, but as I scanned the parking lot, his car wasn't there. I walked up to the front of the restaurant and could see by the entrance there was the little manila envelope. I walked up to it and opened it. It was inside was my GPS locator and the note that said, "Tag, now you're it." My smile and thoughts were cut short as a little hole exploded out of the pillar I was standing by. As I ducked behind the pillar, another hole was created in the brick wall that was now in front of me. Fuck, he's shooting at me. Where's the sound of the gun, though? I thought quickly. He must have a silencer. Shit. I completely fell for his trap. I'm a fucking idiot. What the fuck do I do now? I pulled out my 9mm and peeked my head out from the pillar. I couldn't see him. Fuck. I had no choice but to run. He was closing in on me. I ran into the restaurant, went through the kitchen as a whole bunch of Mexicans were yelling at me, and darted out of the back door. I ran down the alley that the back door led to, my adrenaline pumping. As I neared the end of the alley, I heard something whiz my name, tearing the side of my shirt. Almost out of the alley, I ducked behind a metal dumpster. I chambered around, popped out a bit, and shot twice at him. A loud-ass bang-bang sound shot as the bullets exited the end of the barrel. Fuck, everyone around is going to hear this. And this guy has a goddamn silencer, so he doesn't need to worry about that. I need to get the fuck out of here before the cops show up. I darted out of the alley, and as I rounded the corner, I heard another bullet strike the brick wall. I looked back and saw a huge chunk taken out of the corner. I ran and ran as fast as I could back to my car, trying my best to make sure he didn't follow me. And as I got in and took off, I looked back to see Mike running around the corner, looking around, trying to find me. For a guy his size in a suit, he's pretty damn fucking fast. I then hit a red light with a few cars around me. I could still see him running in my direction, trying to look for me. I could tell he still didn't know what kind of car I was in by the way he was frantically looking around. He kept getting closer and closer until finally he was right beside me on the other side of the street. The only thing that was between us was another car in the left lane. Come the fuck on, Mike. Turn fucking green. I was fucking hysterical at this point. The man that wanted to kill me was about 15 feet away. All he had to do was look really hard enough and through my tinted windows and he'd know it was me. He then continued walking and pulled out his phone. Right as he hit the street corner, the light turned green and I fucking gunned it. As soon as I knew he was away from me, I started laughing louder than I've ever laughed. I was so close to death, and yet I never felt more alive. This is exactly what I needed. And I already couldn't wait for the next encounter. Only next time it would be on my terms. I got back to my motel room and got upstairs. I sat down on the bed and started thinking about what had just happened and planning my next move. I was such a fucking idiot for falling for that trap. He had to have seen those kids plant that thing. Or he had some kind of bug detector like mine that could find planted electronics. I didn't know which one, but I did have a few pieces of valuable information. They were monitoring my bank accounts. He has a silencer and is not afraid to shoot in public. From what I saw, he's not bad at his job. I had just gotten extremely lucky that I switched cars and he didn't happen to see me. I collapsed on the bed, exhausted as the adrenaline wore off. About 15 minutes had passed as I lay on my bed, contemplating everything, and I got a phone call. I looked at my phone, and it was a number that I didn't recognize from a 480 area code. I answered. Well, hello there. You left so soon, we didn't even get to play. Who is this? I asked like a fucking dumbass. I knew who it was. Don't worry about that. It's yourself that you need to worry about. I started laughing. Oh, Mike, my buddy, it's you. I don't think... How do you know my name? He snapped. You shouldn't interrupt people while they're talking, Mike. It's quite rude. As I was saying, I don't think I need to worry about myself too much. I'm it now, though. So I'll be seeing you soon, I said. A few seconds of silence followed. It was like he was in a car. You'll be seeing me sooner than you think. And then he hung up. I don't know what he meant by that, but I needed to get the fuck out of this motel and into a new one. I wrote down the number he called me from, and I packed all of my stuff and got out of there as quickly as I could. As I was leaving, all I could think of was how the fuck he got my number. I threw my phone out the window and kept driving. As I was driving away, I saw his car pull into the motel parking lot. I was just hot. Anyways, once again, I need to get going. This bar I'm at, called the Blind Tiger, is packed, but I've been here for too long, and I needed to get back to my hotel. I also need to start prepping for tomorrow. Thanks for reading, guys. Well, fuck me. I had this whole goddamn thing typed out, and then my laptop died. So now I gotta write this whole fucking update again. Anyway, here's part 1, part 2, and part 3 in case you missed any of them. If it wasn't for all the support and DMs asking when the next part would be out, I wouldn't have even bothered typing all the shit out again. But I know the feeling of getting your daily fix. And I didn't update yesterday due to some events. So, I guess I'll start over. Anyways, fuck me. Let's get this started. Again. I ended the last update with me driving away from the motel parking lot. And after a few seconds of me pulling out, Mike pulled in. If I had left even a few minutes later, he would have caught me in my room packing my shit, or me packing everything up into my car. Did he think I was an idiot that would change places he ended our conversation with, you'll be seeing me sooner than you think, or maybe he's having as much fun as I am with this game. After all, you don't take up this line of work without at least partially enjoying killing people. I'm probably giving him the same rush he's giving me in that he probably doesn't expect his clients to actually go after him or even know that he's coming. Anyways, I got to my next hotel and took a shower. I desperately needed again while singing that stupid fucking Iggy Pop song. It's like a fucking brain parasite. And the only way to get out of singing the song of its people, or some shit, I don't know, sue me. After I got out of the shower, I passed out on the bed after having almost been killed a few hours prior. When I woke up, I knew I needed to get going again. After all, that was it. I went to the Walmart to pick up a new phone and some supplies to make a few suppressors. Yes, I said suppressors instead of silencers, you know, the fucking gun fags. Anyways, as I was walking down the aisles watching all of the fat ass Americans on their scooters because they're too fucking lazy to walk, I started contemplating about how Mike even got my number. I picked up a new phone and a few cans of Cheese Whiz, along with a few other supplies for my suppressors. And no, I'm not getting into how I made them. I just pulled the first guide online and it showed me how they were a real pain in the ass to make. A few of you guys suggested on how to make them seemed a little bit easier. Anyways, I was checking out. I took out my cash and looked at the phone I was about to buy. It dawned on me that when all this started, I paid for my first throwaway phone with my card. I'm such a fucking idiot. That's probably how he tracked me down. I paid for everything. Got back to my hotel. The first thing I did was do some research to see if it was possible to get a phone's ESN or ME number just from the purchase. It turns out it was possible to do. It was just a very difficult process of going through the Woman's Purchase database or the phone's manufacturer database. Fuck, another mistake on my part. If I keep fucking up like this, I'm gonna end up dead. I took the rest of the day to make the suppressors for myself, and they turned out pretty good. Except for the huge fucking Cheese Whiz mess I had to clean up. I now had one for my 9mm and one for my P90. After all was done, it was dark out. I wanted to see if Mike would somehow be able to find me. No card activity or cell phone at his disposal, so I waited. A day passed by, then 2, then 3. After about a week and 3 motels later, I figured he was only able to track me when I used my card or slipped up somehow, like anyone who doesn't know a hitman is following them would do. Unless he was watching and studying me the whole time, which I doubt he was doing. By the end of the week, sleepless nights and constantly looking over my shoulder, I was almost completely out of cash on hand. I knew I needed to hit a bank or an ATM, but as soon as I withdrew some cash from my account, they would know I did, and the location I got it from. After a bit of thinking about this, I figured I could actually use this to my advantage. So I set out a little surprise for little old Mike. After a week prior, he had set me up, so I figured it was time to return the favor. I traveled about 30 minutes to the very outskirts of northwest Las Vegas. I found an area that seemed perfect. My bank on one side of the street, and a desert with lots of boulders and Joshua trees on the other side. As I was surveying the area on one of the corners near the bank, I saw an ATV with a for sale sign on it. I went to the door and rang the bell. A nice typical suburban dad answered the door with his little girl right behind him, hugging his leg and looking at me. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yeah, I actually saw that you had that Yamaha ATV for sale and was wondering how much it was." He told me it was $1,500, and I told him that I was interested. We shot the shit for a while, and He told me about his family and that they just had another little girl. So he had no time. He had not the time or money to keep this thing around. My time of fun and fucking around is on hold for a moment, I guess, he said, laughing a bit. I laughed back, and while I was looking at him, I kinda envied him. If I had a girl I loved a lot, and some little ones that meant the world to me, I wouldn't be doing what I was currently doing. But that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I'm rambling. I told him that I was interested in getting it now, and asked if it was okay if I ran to the bank to grab some cash. He told me that was fine and he would be waiting outside. I got to the bank, and as I was about to put my card into the machine, a thought grabbed my attention. As soon as you pull out this money, you're going to be on the time slot until Mike checks the area. I mentally prepared myself and pulled out the cash. It was time for us to meet again. This time, it was on my terms. I ran back to the man's house with the ATV, and he was outside checking everything out. I handed him the cash and gave it a quick test drive around the neighborhood. I got back in a minute or two and thanked him for the time and wished him luck with his newborn. I got in my car and told him I was going to park it around the corner at the nearby park and come back for the ATV. As I was going to be riding it today, he said that was fine, and I took off. As soon as I parked at the park, I literally ran back to his house and hopped on the ATV. I had just pulled out the cash and knew Mike couldn't possibly be on his way already. But something inside me knew that I couldn't involve the nice gentleman that I just bought this thing from. I wouldn't put it past Mike to break into their house and kill everyone in there, just to get a hint of my location. I drove the ATV back to the park and parked it right behind my car. I got my backpack out from the back seat and put my phone, my homemade suppressors and my 9mm in there. I slung the P90 on my back and also rolled up a few paper targets, put them into my backpack, just in case I got stopped by the police. At least I had an excuse that I was practicing my shooting in the desert. I eventually got about 500 yards out into the desert across from the bank. I set up one of my targets and fired 2 shots from both homemade suppressors from each gun. They both worked really well, with a small sound coming out from each of them. The sun started to set behind the mountain, and I got set up around my ATV behind a large boulder. When it got completely dark, I got on top of the boulder and lied down. I put on a black ski mask and a black shirt so I couldn't be noticed out in the open. I flipped the cap to my scope on the P90 off and looked through it. I could see the bank dimly lit inside, as well as the parking lot. Now all I had to do was wait. It had been about an hour and a half to 2 hours since I had taken out the money and figured Mike should be rolling up by soon. I waited silently, just watching people come and go from the bank, but no Mike. Around 11 o'clock or so, I finally saw his black car pull up. He drove around the bank once and then parked it in front. I immediately noticed his plates weren't on his car, which struck me as odd. He got out and walked to the ATM and had something in his hand with wires attached to it. He put it in the bank machine and turned his back to me. Perfect. I flipped my safety off and took the shot. Boom. Center mass. He fell into the machine and pulled out his gun. How the fuck is he even moving? I shot him right through the fucking back. He ran and ducked behind the car. I aimed for his tires. Boom. Back right tire. Gone. Boom. Back left tire. Gone. At this point, he knew the direction I was shooting from and popped his head out. He shot twice in my direction, but he couldn't see me in the darkness. It was great. I had another huge smile on my face. Now you know what it's like to be trapped, you son of a bitch. But this time you have no way to get away. Alright guys, I was planning on going further than this, but I think I'm done for today, as far as writing goes. I'll update tomorrow and hopefully finish the series up in the next few days. I'll stick around for a bit to answer questions and whatnot. Thanks for reading. Hey, no sleep. First off, I want to apologize for taking so long to update. And secondly, I want to apologize for not updating when I said I was going to, when some of you guys asked. I don't feel like inputting each individual part, so here's all the parts in no sleep search bar in case you missed them. I currently have a massive fucking migraine, so I'll try to write as much as I can about the events that has been happening in the past few days. Then I'll continue on where part 5 left off. Thank you guys again for all the support and encouragement. I started the series simply in the case the inevitable happened to me. I wanted at least one person in the world to know what really happened to the nameless, faceless author that types up these posts and puts them on the internet for everyone to see. They might be able to cover up any evidence they see to fit to cover up, to make a tragic disaster look like an accident. But the one thing that they couldn't erase is the knowledge of what really took place now, and that now hidden deep inside that one person's mind. But instead of one person knowing the truth, something amazing happened, and thousands, possibly tens of thousands of people that are located all over the globe now knew. And that is something that no company, no matter how much power they could never erase it. So thank you guys. Honestly, I owe you. I got done cleaning all my guns at the hotel room, and then I proceeded to go to Walmart to get a few extra outdoor items along with the things I had brought from home in case I couldn't stay at the hotel and had to do a little camping. I picked up about 10 of the 5-gallon propane containers, 2 big 10-gallon gasoline containers, a big bottle of Jack Daniels, and some other odds and ends to keep me sane if I had to wait for him. After all, he did have a reputation for taking his time to prepare and plan for whatever he was about to do. Unless he was setting a trap for me. He really got shit moving when the ball was in his court. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't this time, so I was prepared to wait. I stopped at the gas station to fill up my tank and the 10-gallon gasoline drums I just bought. Once I was done, I headed up to set up and wait. I arrived around 11 p.m. I told Mike to meet me out at Red Rock in 2 days, from where I left him the note. I figured he was going to take the day in between to check out the place for advantages and disadvantages, cover, terrain, and which spots would offer the greatest advantage over the other, i.e. high ground with lots of cover. I already had done this the week before, and I luckily have spent my fair share of time in the area hiking along, just to get out of the city, even if it was just for a moment. You'd be surprised as how much more you can take in when you hike alone and don't have any distractions. I know this particular area very well, almost like the back of my hand. Mike didn't, so I had a few ideas on where to lay a trap for him if he decided to come the next day and do something. I knew he would be looking for a good ambush somewhere I wouldn't expect and where he would have an extreme tactical advantage. There was an area about 2 miles in from where the paved road turns into dirt, big boulders around the road, along with tons of wild trees and bushes. Monsoon season was just coming to an end, so the vegetated was nice and thick, providing lots of side coverage. I was planning on parking my car right after this area in order to provide the illusion that that's where I would ambush him. However, there's a big overhanging plateau formation way in the distance. It had 3 great perch areas that looked over the entire stretch of road for about 1.5 miles in each direction. This was my best chance I had, and I needed to take it. I arrived at 11 p.m. and parked my car way off the dirt road and out of the line of sight from people driving. I packed all my gear I would need for the night and started to trek up into the area I chose to watch from. I only brought 2 of my guns, my 9mm just in case. It's always good to have a backup, and my baby that was a little hungry to do some hunting, the Barrett 50 cal. I finally trekked up to the plateau and got the rifle set up for a good shot of incoming traffic. It was around midnight at this point, and I figured I'd just relax with some Jack and some shitty easy cookie meals for a bit. I had no internet or phone service, so it was the good old-fashioned books and a few comics to keep me entertained. I had other stuff in the back of the car, but I was content for the night. At around 2:30 to 3 a.m., I heard a car coming down the dirt road towards me. I was a little curious, as no one is usually out here at this time of night. I just figured it was a park ranger or some love-crazy kids that wanted to be alone. Wasn't worried about either, as I hid in the car extremely well and didn't have any electronics or any other things that would alert people to looking up in my direction. I watched as the car got closer and closer to the area I was planning on leaving the car for Mike. The car, a blue Toyota RAV4, had rental stickers on the sides of the windows, which made me think it was just some tourists enjoying the desert at night. But then, once I started thinking about it, someone who doesn't know the area, especially while traveling at night, wouldn't even leave the scenic roundabout, let alone come to some random off-trail in the middle of bumfuck Egypt. It dawned on me that Mike probably had a rental car, as I, blew his up. Oops. I waited for a minute, and after being stopped at the area for a minute, someone got out the car. And holy shit, it was Mike. He had a fucking big-ass bulletproof jacket on, along with some huge assault rifle. It looked like an AR-15, but way more decked out, and more like a fucking Rambo would mow people in the rainforest down with. I waited for him to drop his guard and look around a bit, and then I took the shot. Missed by a bit. Holy shit, how dumb could I be? I didn't reset the scope after cleaning the gun. Fucking details, man. So I went to another perch point and reset the scope. And then I added a bit of other things into the equation, like distance and angle. And everything checked out. Mike was behind a boulder that was blocking my view from where I had first shot him. But this new perch was just to the side of it. He slowly inched his way into my scope, and I lined up a second shot. Boom. Holy fuck, this gun sounds beautiful. The bullet drop was a bit more than I anticipated, so I hit him in the knee. The bullet blew his fucking leg completely off his body from the knee down. I shot the gun 3 times to disable it and empty my clip. I made my way down to him, and he was looking at me with a shocked look. Like, how the fuck did you hit my leg? I put a tourniquet on his leg, but of course searched him for weapons first. He still had the original 9mm with the suppressor on that he first shot me. Memories, man. And then shot him up with an EpiPen I always keep in my first aid kit to keep him alive for a bit longer. A bit cruel, yeah. But I didn't want it to end just yet. I had other things for him to see. I dragged him over to his car and put him in the front seat so I could watch him. I went over to him with a bottle of Jack and asked if he wanted his last drink. He sure took that fucking opportunity. That's for damn sure. I loaded all of the propane tanks into the back along with both gasoline containers. Then we drove for about 45 minutes and barely awake, but still fully conscious. And really enjoying the Jack. We got up a little ways on the back to Mount Charleston, and eventually got to a good straightaway with a sharp turn at the end, with nothing but a little guardrail in between the road and about a 1,300-foot drop. I found a good-sized rock on the other side of the road and started to pour the gas all over the inside of the vehicle. All Mike did was close his eyes and wait. When I was done and about to launch it, I went up to the door and asked him a simple question. You want it fast and quick, or long and horrible? He looked at me with a smile and held up a nearly empty Jack Daniels bottle. Fast, but let me finish this first. He chugged the rest of it and said something I'll never forget. I definitely don't want to die just yet, but you sure set up one hell of a fucking game for yourself. He knew I had put a hit on myself right after I left him that very first note to my apartment that said, "Tag, you're it." He looked up forward out the windshield to the sky and said, "Do it. Make it quick and clean. And light this fucking thing and get the fuck out of this area." Until the very end, he was a damn good sport about it. If the tables would have been turned, I don't think I would have been so nice about it. Boom. In one temple, out the other. I set the gas on fire in the back first and placed the car in drive. I let it fall on the gas pedal, and the car took off. It strayed to the right a bit, but it was going pretty damn fast by the time it hit the edge. I was walking about 5 or 6 minutes before the propane tanks exploded. They can handle a bit of heat, I guess. They went off one after another, and the last 4 or 5 of them all went off at once. I got the highways and started walking the trail back to my area, and that's all how this should have ended, but I'm sorry to say it hasn't. Mike and I met for the last time at Red Rock Canyon about 6 days ago, and ever since then, some really weird shit has been going on. I really don't know for sure if they're all connected. It's obvious that some of these occurrences do, and the pieces that are fitting together are constantly leading back to one thing: the organization I originally hired. But my mind is trying to make everything that has happened to me from the past 6 days of all of them fit together. I fear I'll miss something if I don't make them fit. Something that would end up saving my life, possibly. In the end, I'm just smashing up all of my experiences and clues I've gathered in the past 6 days, trying to find some sort of picture of the game they're playing with me. All I know is, ever since Mike and I finished our game of tag, my life has turned completely upside down. Enemies are everywhere, and worse yet, I don't even know who they are, what they look like, and what they want from me. I can't trust anybody except for people I knew before I started this game, and in a city with this many people, I don't have a whole lot of options. First off, for the past 6 days, I've been having massive migraine headaches. It feels like there's an ice pick slamming into different parts of my brain with each pulse of my heart. I got regular light headaches every so often, like any other person does. They were nothing some Advil couldn't fix, but these are different. They're happening every fucking day, multiple times a day, and nothing I take can get rid of them. I have to wait for them to pass, which takes a few hours. I could barely stand when they happen, and light aggravates them. I even have my laptop screen on its lowest setting to minimize this. Secondly, 3 days ago I was waiting at a light intersection in Henderson, a city connected to Las Vegas on the south side. The left turned green, but the other lights for people that wanted to go through the intersection were still red. so I remained stopped, waiting patiently with no other cars in front of me. The first car, turning left, started through the intersection. Then, out of nowhere, a car going at least 60 to 70 miles per hour barrels through the bones of the car. The car that was T-boned while turning spun a few times and ended up on the other side of the intersection, finally stopping to the other corner of the sidewalk to the left from my position, while the other car that sped through the light barely made it through the intersection, coming to a grinding halt as its engine dropped and the front end completely caved in. Everyone slammed on their brakes, and the intersection was pretty much wide open, so I hit the gas and drove through, parked my car in front of her with my right side wheels up on the curb. I jumped out of the car and ran to hers, praying she was okay, and attempted to open her driver's side door, but it was also caved in where the other car had impacted, so the door locked was busted to shit from what it looks like. I ran to the passenger side and unlocked the door through the window, seeing the unconscious woman strapped into what looked like a metal death box. I had an unbelievable sense of recognition come over me. I knew I had seen her before, but I had no idea where. Like walking past someone that you've seen chewing at your favorite grocery store. Or recognize someone that jogs around your block every morning. Only this time, you're both standing in line to buy movie tickets. You recognize them and you know that you've seen them around somewhere, but you don't know exactly where. I quickly pushed the thought out of my mind in order to focus. I tried getting her out of her seat, but I couldn't access the buckle latch attached to the seat as it was completely encased by the caved-in driver's side door. I searched my pockets frantically for my pocket knife and cut through the belt. As soon as it was done, I picked her up and carefully as I could, I set her down on the curb just outside the passenger side door. Adrenaline is quite an amazing chemical when it fully kicks in and flows through your body. She felt like she only weighed 30 pounds when I picked her up. As I was laying her down on the sidewalk, I saw a little chunk of metal sticking out of her thigh through her tight jeans. It was protruding out about 3 inches, but I had no idea how far it extended into her thigh. I took off my belt. It's funny, I actually referred to it as my lucky belt ever since I got away while running from the cops drunk in college, and because of all the other ridiculous situations I've gotten out of while wearing it. It's stretchy, with no designated loops, so it could fit around anything as small as a stop sign post. Do something as big as the fattest contestant of the season premiere of The Biggest Loser. I slipped it under her leg and pulled as tightly as I could. A couple inches above where the metal was sticking out. Right as I did that, she opened her eyes very slightly and looked at me. Then after a few seconds, she closed them as she blacked out again. I kept my fingers on her neck to feel her pulse, and it was there. It was faint, but it was there. I lifted up her leg really quickly to see a round of red stained as a pool of blood started gathering underneath her thigh, trapped there due to her tight skinny jeans. Every 30 seconds or so I checked, and thankfully it wasn't getting much bigger. Looking back, it seemed like time itself was going in so slow as I got her from her car and tended to her injuries. Completely blocked out the world around me. As soon as I knew she wasn't going to bleed out, I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. Reality snapped back as I looked around to survey the scene. Mostly people were just standing around on the opposite side of the street from where I was, some on their phone, presumably to 911, and the others just shocked by the accident they just witnessed. I looked over to see 2 people pulling the man who had ran the red light out of the window, his car about 2 to 3 yards the length it used to be. Even a bit of the front doors of the car were warped a bit, which explained why they couldn't get them opened. It maybe took the paramedics 4 or 5 minutes to get to the scene. It felt like an eternity. 2 ambulances came flying to our location. One went and parked by the other man's car, and the other went in front of mine. I checked her pulse one last time, and it was still there, faint, and it damn sure seemed to be clinging to life, but nevertheless it was there. As soon as he took her vitals and gave her a quick look over, he asked me for a quick summary of what had happened. I explained and asked if she was going to be okay. To my relief, he said yes, and explained she might not have made it if it wasn't thanks to me putting the Mr. Lucky Belt. And the fact that I had left the object in her leg. I learned as a kid in Boy Scouts to never remove an object that was stuck in a person, as it can lead to even more blood loss. And then, very quickly, death. And proper tourniquet placement on the arms and legs to prevent a person from bleeding out. I chuckled a bit inside. Who would fucking imagine that I would ever put any of this stuff to use in the real world? He asked if I wanted my belt back, and I told him no, and to attach a note to it that explained that it was her lucky belt now, and that it saved her life. We laughed for a quick second as he agreed, and as I turned around, the police officer approached me. I'm not too big of a fan of cops, but I figured I was not in any sort of trouble, as I had just helped secure the victim of an accident. He asked me if I could give a statement of what happened, and I agreed. He turned around and asked me to follow him to his car to get some paperwork. I saw the man sitting up on the stretcher, and the other EMTs pulled out. He was yelling and slurring his words, and acted as any obliterated person would after they had just caused a really bad accident. I kept looking at him, and he seemed familiar as well. I didn't recognize him as well as I did the woman I'd helped, but I definitely seen him before. I heard him shout in a drunken manner at the EMT. My brakes didn't stop. The brake pedal didn't do anything. We continued to the cop car, and I gave him my statement. As we were finishing up, another cop came to the side of him, chuckling a bit, and said, "The guy's BAC was .21, according to the breathalyzer. We also found half an empty beer can over the passenger side door. He's saying something about his brakes not working, but he's so fucked up he probably wasn't hitting the gas pedal instead." The officer taking my statement nodded, and the other cop walked back to the scene as 2 tow trucks had just arrived. The officer who was taking my statement turned and put the pad and pen on the seat of his squad car. "We're done here," he said in a serious tone, and I turned to walk away. I told a few steps away, and I heard him say, "Oh, by the way." "Yeah?" I asked. "I heard you saved a woman's life by slowing the bleeding down until we got here." He turned around and said, "I don't think I saved her life by any means, but I was just trying to give her as much time as she could until the paramedics arrived." I was turned around and started walking away, and heard him say in a quiet, deep voice, "Seems like you did the opposite for the other guy who flew off the mountain on the other side of Mount Charleston a few minutes ago. Perfect place to go off to. Must have been at least 1,000 feet plunge or more." I stopped dead in my tracks. All the blood that was in my face fled, replaced with a substance that felt colder than liquid nitrogen. Frozen there, and without turning back around to face him. "Excuse me?" I asked, my very soul not wanting to hear his answer because I knew I was completely fucked. "Oh, nothing. You saved one life and ended another. I think that God would call that even, don't you think?" he said, his voice getting more and more cheerful after each syllable left his mouth. Like a proud hunter knowing his prey was cornered with no possible way to escape. Feeling like I was frozen in a block of ice, having nowhere to go, I replied, I can't really say God hasn't said anything to me yet, but I'll let you know when he does. As I spoke, I literally felt like a dead man walking, like this man behind me was taking the very energy of my soul as he stared at me. He started laughing. Well, who knows? You may get that chance sooner than you think, he said, then his voice suddenly going back to the previous deep monotone darkness it was before. But who am I to say that? I heard him turn around and take a few steps into his car, and then shut the door behind him. I was standing there frozen until I heard the car door shut, causing the regular world to return as I slowly walked back to my car. And after this occurred, my laptop I was using to catalog everything I've done so far, checked my bank accounts, look at pretty much all of my information on it that I needed to stay ahead, started acting up about a few weeks ago. Randomly closing internet tabs, me being in the middle of writing an update on no sleep and my laptop would shut off. The final straw was my command bar popping up on its own and writing out, "We are watching. We are everywhere." Without me even touching the fucking computer. They now had complete control of it, and that it's useless to me. So I had to get a new one and make sure it doesn't get hacked. Anyways, looking back at what I just typed, I'm pretty much wrote a whole fucking prologue to what happens after the game. I'll update if anything continues. But don't count on every day. Or every other day updates like I've been doing. Thanks for reading, everyone. And, oh, sorry if there's any typos. I had to type this all out really quickly because they seem to show up within a few hours of wherever I go. Later, no sleep. It's been fun. And I hope you enjoy it.